What's going on, guys? It's Ricky with TechBud Solutions. Hope that you guys are all having an amazing Sunday. Today's April 13th, 5:43 p.m. and it's time to go live. So let's quickly digest what we know so far about the market. So overnight hours have officially opened on Webull. If you guys do not use Webull, Webull is the trading application that I use. It is available in the US. It does offer commission-free trading. If you guys want to check it out, you could use my link. You don't have to, but it's the fifth link in the description down below of this live stream. And if you use my link and have an initial deposit of at least $5, you'll earn some free shares. So feel free to check it out. Fifth link in the description down below. And yes, it does offer overnight trading. So NASDAQ market is up 1.2%. So some people were confused by this based off of my most recent upload. We quickly went and broke down exactly what was stated by Donald Trump earlier today. So I kind of want to elaborate a little bit on this, on why the markets and most tech companies are still in the green. But the question you should ask yourself is, will they hold, right? Because markets are not open right now. This is overnight hours. A lot can happen by the time the market opens tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. PST or at 9:30 a.m. EST. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Very simple. Why are markets in the green right now? As you can see, NASDAQ is up 1.21%, and most of big tech is up about, it's nothing crazy, but Amazon's up about almost 1%. Some stocks are up 3 to 4%. Maybe some stocks like Apple are up 6%. You have to understand what was announced on Friday and really on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. The original news was that there was a lot of selling pressure going on with Apple and a lot of these different companies that manufacture in China because Trump announced a 145% tariff on China exports, right? Very simple. But then Trump announced on the 12th, Trump exempts phones, computers, and other electronics from reciprocal tariffs. This is great news for Apple and Nvidia and whatever tech company manufactures in China. So if this was the only news, I believe markets would be up even more because you have to remember, they were originally assumed that they were going to be taking these 145% tariffs if they're based out of China because China does not want to negotiate or hasn't negotiated with the United States. But then today, this breakdown pretty much took back of nobody's getting off the hook for unfair trade balances. He's saying there was no tariff exemption announced on Friday. These products are still subject to existing 20% fentanyl tariffs, which means that there is still a tariff, but you have to understand 20% is much less than 145%, right? So it's not rocket science. It is good news still based off of the news that was announced yesterday about the tariff exemptions, which is why big tech and most of the market are still in the green. But yes, because of this update or kind of like response that Trump gave today, I believe it's enough uncertainty that people are going to want to start taking profits. Let me make this very clear. That is just my opinion. I've been wrong many times, and it doesn't mean that it actually has to happen. But based off of how people are responding and for Donald Trump to have felt the need to send out a message where he's saying nobody is getting off the hook. I know he was getting just pressed so hard about why are you allowing and giving Apple and other billion and trillion dollar companies this exemption, but not small business? Because that's where my mind went. I understand why he was doing it, right? Because again, Apple does, and like Apple's a huge company, one of the most valuable companies that's publicly traded. So they do have a lot of leverage. Like, let's not pretend like they don't. They also do carry and host a lot of jobs. And this tariff would or can have a huge negative impact on Apple and Apple business. So are these exemptions a favor? I mean, it doesn't matter what we think. It's just, let's make it very clear. Regardless of opinion, these companies were exempt. This was announced on Saturday. That's huge news, positive news. That would have sent Apple skyrocketing, right? Maybe 10% plus. But then because of this update, saying, whoa, hey, no one's off the hook. There's still a 20% tariff, but it's not 145%. So it's kind of like, it's not as sweet, but it's still kind of sweet. Do you get what I mean? Does that make sense? I just want to make sure that that was clearly understood on why the market is in the green, but maybe it's not in the green as much. I believe that by the time the market opens, I wouldn't be surprised if we begin to see some selling pressure due to uncertainty, right? A lot of you guys are aware of the VIX index, VIX, and that is the volatility index. I wouldn't be surprised that it begins to uptick as markets begin to open because of the uncertainty. That's just my opinion. It's not a fact, right? It's just based off of how I'm seeing markets react. We're seeing more selling pressure than buying pressure, and this is just overnight hours. So wanted to make sure that that was super clear to understand. So I just subscribed to comment. What's going on, brother? All right. Here we go. What's up? What's up? Hey, Ricky. Yeah, you rock as usual. Appreciate you, Michael. But let's go ahead and just jump right into it. So I'm going to share with you just two stocks that I'm going to be paying attention to this week because I feel like that's going to be my main focus. And it's going to be Apple and NASDAQ, right? So because markets pushed up so much overnight and over the weekend, what I'm looking for is that if markets do begin to retrace, SQQQ would begin to recover. And remember, SQQQ is not an investment vehicle. SQQQ goes up when the NASDAQ market goes down. So if NASDAQ market and most of tech begin to go down due to uncertainty, then SQQQ would go up. This is why I'm going to be paying attention to SQQQ, to day trade it, not to invest in it, to day trade it. Just want to make sure that that's very clear. So if you're part of my LPP team or tune on into my live trading sessions, you'll most likely see me talk a little bit more about it within those lives. Again, it would make sense, right? Markets become overbought, uncertainty begins to sink in, markets retrace, SQQQ picks up. It's a triple leverage ETF. Again, it's not something that you want to invest in. Let me make that very clear. The second one that I want to pay attention to is Apple. Apple's obviously a very successful company and has every right to be. But because of this huge gap up of 6 to 7%, let's say that it even pushes up higher by the time the market opens for some reason, I want to see if it holds. And if it doesn't hold and it's an overreaction, there's some pullback potential. I would love the opportunity to potentially short Apple because, again, if Apple is up 6, 7, 8%, that means that it offers 6, 7, 8% of potential downside. If markets begin to sell off, if uncertainty begins to sink in, remember, we're still waiting to hear what China and the US are going to try to settle out in negotiations. None of that is settled, but so many people are so eager for the market to recover that they forget about that. Right? As of right now, China and the US have not come to an agreement. So as of right now, we cannot assume that markets are just going to recover and that there is no more concern or issue when it comes down to going into a recession and interest rates going up. That's the second thing that, again, I want to pay very close attention to this week, and it's the sentiment that is expected from the Federal Reserve. There's a tool that I want to share with you guys. It's free and available if you guys want to check it out. It's by investing.com, but it's called the Fed Rate Monitor tool. And this gives you a probability based off of its consensus, and it tells you how it picks it up. If the Federal Reserve is expected to cut interest rates or if the Federal Reserve is expected to pause. Remember, the stock market would thrive if the Federal Reserve starts to cut interest rates. Because when the Federal Reserve cuts interest rates, it makes it less expensive for people like you and I to borrow money. So right now there's only a 16% probability. And unfortunately, if you've been wanting the market to go up and you want these rate cuts, this probability has actually been going down. It started at like 40 or 50%, and every single week, it seems like it's less and less likely that the Federal Reserve is going to cut interest rates on the next Fed meeting, which is expected to be May 7th. Just something to take into consideration. Remember, it's not about predicting the future, but it's taking time to understand what the consensus is of the market. And that is what is done with this Fed Rate Monitor tool. Right now, again, it's a very important economic report that the market's paying attention to and what the sentiment is from the Federal Reserve. The United States, Trump wants the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates. Remember, the Federal Reserve doesn't have to listen to Trump. They don't have to listen to the Trump administration. They're independent, right? So their focus is to do what they believe is best for the American people and not to be influenced by Trump. Nonetheless, there are assumptions that originally Trump was trying to crash the market to force the Federal Reserve to start cutting interest rates. That is all it is. It's an assumption. Again, the Federal Reserve is independent and should not be influenced by the president nor any other political figure. Just something to take into consideration, right? So Jerome Powell is speaking Wednesday. Solid. All right. Other than that, one thing I also want to make very clear is I'm going to break down probably 3 more stocks for you guys. So if you guys want me to break down your stock, just share it in the live chat. Just share the ticker symbol and why you either want to buy it or if you are considering shorting it, right? The thing that I want to remind you, because we might get lost, you might end up clicking out of the video. So even before we get into that, the thing that I want to remind you this week is it's still all uncertain. We don't know if markets are going to recover from here. We don't know if they're going to continue to drop. Let me make this very clear. I want markets to drop. That is kind of selfishly, I want markets to drop. Not because I want to short the market. It's not because of that. I want better deals. And I'm okay with sharing that with you. Like, that's what I want. Now, does that mean that that's what has to happen? Heck no, right? But this is why I am taking it day by day and week by week. I'm asking myself a very simple question, a question I believe every trader and investor should ask themselves. As news gets released, ask yourself, is this temporary? A very simple question. So you don't make an impulsive decision on a permanent or long-term trade on temporary catalyst. A very simple question. I believe in a moment like this where there's a lot of volatility, a lot of stress, I just want to make sure that you have these reality check with yourselves every single time that you're about to initiate a trade. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. If you want me to break down your stock, just make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you drop that thumbs up and feel free to share it in that live chat. So it looks like already Apple's already dropping, Amazon's already dropping. It looks like my assumption is not far off, right? Looks like people are beginning to take profits. Not far off. I like it. Hey, and I've been wrong many times. I've shared that with you guys. My LPP team gets to watch me trade live every morning. They know I'm wrong many times, but that's the whole point of the live sessions. You get to see raw trading. So if you ever want to check it out, it's the second link in the description down below. But let's go ahead and break that down. Amazon. Actually, Amazon's a company that I would consider investing in long term. Would I consider trading it? No. It's up about 0.5% overnight. Is it overbought? Yeah, I mean, it could get rejected. I just don't think I don't know if you're thinking about going long or shorting it. You didn't give me any context with what you intend to do. I like looking at different timeframes. I believe, and I share this with my LPP team all the time, different timeframes give you different perspectives. What might look like a good buy on the 5-minute time frame of oh yeah, I need to buy it right now. It's going to go back up to 194. If I look at this on the 4-hour, it's oh, holy crap, man. This thing's a descending pattern. It's getting rejected by the moving average with a strong descending pattern. It could continue to sell off. Yeah? Okay, do you want to bring her in here? Give me one quick second, guys. I have to grab my daughter. Let me open it. Yeah, just bring her in here. Okay. Yeah. Love you. Love you too. Have fun. All right, we'll do. Hope that you guys are okay with my little daughter's going to join us for this little live session, but more mac and cheese for Remy. That's right, Max. But yeah, that's a really important thing that I would encourage you to pay attention to. It's just if you're going to make obviously a day trade, this should be less impulsive or less useful. But if you see something that's hey, we continue to get rejected by that moving average, we're still uncertain if markets are going to recover. I want to be careful here. We're closer to a descending resistance, and if it does get rejected, it can have a long leg all the way back down to 160, which again is a pretty decent downside. So as of right now, would I say that this is the best buy in the short term? Well, no, definitely not, based off of this descending pattern. Now, if your intention is long term, then again, you shouldn't just be going off of a technical analysis. You should perform a fundamental analysis. And Amazon is definitely a company that I would consider going long in, myself as well. But the biggest thing is the market done selling off? And if the answer is no, or there's some uncertainty behind that, which I think everyone should have some uncertainty, I do believe that we should see at least levels of 170 to 175 once again, because again, things are not certain that markets have to recover, but definitely a stock that I would consider watching, adding to my watch list, and creating a game plan of where I plan to buy, where I plan to sell, but that would be long-term. Tesla's not necessarily a stock that I would consider day trading very often. It doesn't tend to have very volatile days, and it also isn't hugely impacted It is impacted by these tariffs, but not something like Apple or Nvidia to that same degree. As you can see, it's only up 0.5% versus Apple. Based off of that news, Apple was up, I think, 6 or 7%, huge leg up. So just understanding the response or reaction of the company based off of these tariffs once they're announced. All right. Meta long. Meta's been killing it. My only concern with Meta, and again, this is just my opinion. If you want to invest in Meta, please be my guest. I don't like because of how bullish it was, it reminds me of like all those companies that did very well during the pandemic. Obviously, Meta's different. Meta is doing really well. But because it possibly became too overvalued within a short period of time, that's my concern. It had such a strong last 2 years that maybe there is a little bit more of potential downside, right? Apple might sell off 5 or 10% more. Meta might sell off an additional 20 to 30% because it has more to give back because it gapped up more due to its strong rally, something to take into consideration. But I do agree long-term, if market conditions do begin to get better, if the issues that we currently have with interest rates, China, and this trade war begin to get resolved or not get worse, then yeah, market should begin to bottom. We should begin to see signs of a potential support. And I can definitely see why a lot of people would see value going into Meta. But again, ask yourself that question is, are things actually getting better right now? Any thoughts going long on PLTR? What do you guys think? For all those that are part of my LPP team, what do you guys think I'm going to say about PLTR? Actually, you guys probably wouldn't guess it because I had a vendetta against PLTR. It was like my kryptonite. And the reason why is because it was so incredibly bullish and it bothered me so much because I knew it was overvalued, but it was just such a strong company. So I do see why a lot of people are paying attention to it and they're just eager for it to continue to rocket just as it was once before. Market conditions are simply not giving it, I believe, the environment for it to rocket as it once was. Can it once again? Yeah, definitely, possibly, right? It was a stock that I was debating if I wanted to invest as it began to retrace because honestly, it's not doing a terrible job, right? There's a lot of companies that became overvalued that once markets began to retrace, they got absolutely destroyed, right? MicroStrategy is one that I love to talk about. It's a piece of shit, worthless company that all it does, it buys Bitcoin. Its average purchase price is 67,000. And in my opinion, when Bitcoin crashes, this of course is going to go down the hole as well. There's also companies, as you guys can tell, I don't really like it. The other company that also I believe was incredibly overhyped was the Nancy Pelosi pump and dump. That's TEM, went to $91. I called it out for being overvalued. I called it out. The only reason that it's pumping is because Nancy Pelosi invested it and it lost over 50% of its value as markets began to retrace. It makes sense why, right? And the other one is HIMS. Where's HIMS at? HIMS also was doing very well, became way overvalued, and has lost about 50% of its value as well. If you compare that to PLTR, PLTR is actually not terrible, right? Its retracement that it had is decent, but it's kind of found its bottom. So I can definitely see technically why it is that so many people are eager to potentially invest in PLTR. It's a very well-ran company. When you look at their financials, everything is very well structured, and supposedly their growth and projections for 2025 and 2026 are only getting better. So yes, it would be a company that I would consider investing in, but because and if markets continue to drop, I have just so many options to choose from. I just see PLTR as a more of a higher risk, higher potential reward approach. So I wouldn't be afraid to give it some money. I just wouldn't give it the most. That's just my 2 cents. GME long. Really? You think anyone really wants to go long on GME? Come on. Really? I'm going to leave it very simple with this one. No. GME would be one of the last companies I would ever want to invest in. Very big difference between investing and trading, right? I appreciate that, Roberto. Thank you. That's actually a good one. That's one that I was, okay, so he's bringing up Hood. This is one that I've been considering, not right now, but as markets begin to recover and trading activity begins to pick up, a lot of people during downturns, maybe they're getting invested. This is huge for Robinhood. And the other one is if market conditions do begin to get better, it would also give crypto, and you guys know I don't like crypto, but we have to acknowledge opportunity regardless of my personal bias. I know I probably won't invest in it or invest in coin, or maybe I would. I would invest in possibly coin, because if conditions become favorable for everything else, then markets for crypto can begin to thrive once again. Remember, crypto is, in my opinion, a luxury market. It will never do good if everything else is failing. But if everything else is doing good and a bunch of people have a bunch of FU money at super low rates, why not create pixelated pictures and sell them for millions of dollars? That's the only time they do well, but they can do well, right? And just like we've seen, coin is Coinbase. Coinbase is a very popular platform. It's become quite oversold. It's testing a possible support. So again, if markets do begin to recover, then yes, I do see Coinbase to be a possible stock that I would pay attention to, because the ROI potential would be big, right? Because it would have the environment to do well in. So something to take into consideration. MU, I'm very glad that you brought that up. Not enough people talk about it. Micron Technology. This one's been getting pretty destroyed though. Market sentiment, this kind of reminds me of like AMD, doesn't it? It's just not performing well. Wall Street just doesn't like it. Wall Street likes Nvidia, and that's it. So it would be, if I were to invest in it, I wouldn't give it much size. And the reason why is technically it just hasn't performed well. I understand that there's good, it would just, you'd have to have a really high tolerance of being very patient and tolerating the time that it hopefully might take for this stock to recover. My issue with this is, do I really want to waste my money in something that might not recover when there's so much opportunity on certain stocks that are conditioned to do very well? Do you get what I mean? So just food for thought. So there's so much to think about. And I can go back and forth with this all the time or all day, because there are so many stocks that are currently presented that are good deals. But again, it's like, do I want to waste my time trading those or investing in those when there's certain stocks that I know if markets recover, these will recover? So maybe I'm just getting older. Maybe I'm just trying to play it more safe. But the biggest part is just get involved. So if markets do begin to downturn, I get excited, right? If you've never invested, if you've never traded, in my opinion, there's never been a better time. And even if you just do it with one share, it's a proof of concept. Maybe you can learn from it, of how to buy a stock, how to sell a stock. But the whole point is to learn the importance of investing during downturns. So then when you see if markets do recover and you see, wow, this stock recovered 20, 30, 40%. If I would have done this with $10,000 instead of with $100, I could have made X amount. So it's just a proof of concept to show you that yes, during downturns, this is the time you want to get invested. And that's what I hope most of you gain from it. If I'm being honest with you, you have to be straight up. You're not going to become a millionaire when markets recover, right? Especially if you're doing it with a smaller dollar amount. There's no reason to sugarcoat it. But the biggest thing is you can learn from your own experience, not from mine, not from what I say, not from what other people are talking about, but from your own. You've lived it. You've learned from it of, hey, I bought Apple, I bought Nvidia, I bought Micron Technologies during a downturn, and then I stayed patient. I did it with one share. Markets recovered, and now I'm up 50%. Now I understand the importance of investing during down markets. And then at that point, you should get excited every time that markets sell off. It'll encourage you to maybe invest. You maybe buy 5 shares, 10 shares, whatever the case might be. At that point, you can kind of take a hold of how involved you want to be in this market. But the biggest thing that I always want to suggest is don't be afraid to get involved, but get involved with a dollar amount in which you can tolerate. This is not a make it or break it market. It shouldn't be. And that's why I really don't resonate very well with crypto bros, because they're always trying to encourage you to jump into some super risky stock and buy at all-time highs just so you can be their exit liquidity. At the end of the day, if you want to get involved in a way that makes sense. You can learn from it. And again, I think that is best done with a dollar amount in which that doesn't cloud your thinking. It allows you to focus on the opportunity. The making money part simply comes later. So again, I talk a little bit more about this in detail in my LPP lesson library. You don't have to join. I have a bunch of free videos on YouTube. But again, if you're someone that learns best by structure and by watching other people do, you get access to the A to Z video lesson library designed for beginners, and you also get access to my daily live trading sessions. I'll be going live tomorrow right at market open. I hope to see you there. And if you want to tune on in, second link in the description down below. I appreciate your time, and like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take care, team. Happy Sunday. We'll see you tomorrow.